Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. Relationships can be hard and it can take a lifetime to learn about ourselves. On this episode, I spoke to Siobhan Mullins, who's a trained family lawyer specialising in the separation agreement space. She helps couples to make their separation agreements official quickly and easily. She talks about the process, what she sees, relationships in general, and many more topics, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it. Thanks again for supporting Move Your Mind. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to moveyourmind.me, or you can purchase the Move Your Mind book at nickbracks.com/book. Siobhan, thank you so much for making the time to come on my podcast.
Oh, Nick, thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. And it's been great to, I guess I always say, being able to do these remotely is such a positive thing because I'm in New York at the moment, but, able to have this conversation with you now. So appreciate you. What time is it for you? It's
just after 9 in the morning.
Yep,
in the morning.
Okay. Yep. Well, appreciate you, jumping on first thing in the morning to come on the podcast.
My pleasure. Great to connect.
So before we get into it, I normally get the guests to just give a bit of a background on themselves and their story and sort of, how you got to where you are and what you're doing now. So if you don't mind, just giving a bit of an overview about where you've come from and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm one of 4 kids. I have 3 brothers who I love to bits. I'm a family lawyer by trade, but collaboratively trained. So that is, I focus on helping couples to stay out of court and, work together to reach the very best outcomes for them and their family. Getting into that, I originally started studying social work because I had that passion for social justice and helping people. And I subsequently moved into studying law because I've got a very analytical brain in that space. And so a few years ago, I set up my own small business that focuses on helping couples exclusively in that separation agreement space. People often ask me, are your parents separated or have you been through a separation? And, what makes you so interested and passionate about this particular area? And look, my parents are still together after close to 40 years, I think. So it's really this love of relationships and people, and I've got some incredible male role models in my life. So I want to see, kids grow up with that. And if, there's a sense of being able to help men who potentially aren't that great at asking for help, if I can come at it in a collaborative way and arm them with some of the confidence and information to move forward in their separation. Sorry, I'm jumping all over here, but
no, it's great.
A bit of a
jump as much as you like, and that's what we'll try and jump as much as we can in this chat. But no, it's really interesting, and I guess relationships are such a huge part of life, one of the biggest parts of life, and we're not taught. We're not taught about how to. I guess it all links. I guess that's why I'm interested to have this chat as well. It all links to mental health and understanding ourselves and our emotions and all that sort of thing and stuff that we don't get taught about. So often we'll sort of have to learn through trial and error, and sometimes if we don't have the right guidance we might not be able to sort of correct mistakes that we make. So I think it's such an important area when it comes to mental health for us to understand the mechanics of this.
Oh gosh, yeah the more we can do to talk about it and bring awareness to improving people's lives and education is it has to happen.
Yeah, and do you see through your work I guess you were saying for men often they might not know how to talk about it. Has that led to mental health related issues in what you've seen?
Yes, I think there's this. When you think of that traditional family law legal system, there's this idea of, it favours women. It favours, the mums are always going to get the full-time or primary care of the kids. And, what about the guys who can feel very much hard done by and feel like the system is against them? And so when you've got that, perceived experience, but also those sort of lived experiences through mates who have gone through it or other family members, you go, well, yeah, look, why would I necessarily entertain engaging in that sort of process? And, you know, the median age of men who are separating, I think it was as at 2020, was something like 42 years or something. And so you think 40 years
Wow.
ago, well, God, we're all still growing up with the, you know, man up, you know, don't show emotion. A bloke is this, you be that sort of tough macho guy. So there's still very much this lived experience and this stigma around talking about feelings and emotions and asking for help. And so I do see some, I suppose, behaviours or things that I think might signify there to be a bit more to what's being shown in terms of a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, you know, and I've seen that firsthand through, you know, a friend of mine who, a male who had a horrific sort of situation happen, and he had his kids taken away from him, and it dragged out over, you know, a 5-10 year period. And his ex-wife had moved to another state, and sort of he was sort of discouraged to go and take it to court. And, you know, as it turned out, she actually had, you know, very severe mental health issues, and he ended up sort of getting custody of the kids, but, or getting, you know, not custody, getting shared, you know, custody of the kids. But I guess I learned a lot through that. And, you know, not that it should be favouring one side or the other, but I guess just being able to find that middle ground where whatever side you're on, that you can feel like you can really, you know, have your rights, you know, be heard and get, you know, have your rights to, you know, where you stand with it.
And I think it's one of the problems is that issue of being reluctant to ask for help or seek out proper information. And, you know, women, we tend to be better at asking for help, sharing amongst friends and family and talking to people for advice. But guys, there's still, as I said, there's this stigma of asking for help. And so we try, you know, for some guys, they try to do it alone. And so they're coming from a place of, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I think this is right. And so for each person, for realistic expectations to be set very early on in the piece in terms of what an appropriate outcome looks like moving forward, and how you can, well, the things that you can do early on in the piece to, you know, work towards that shared care arrangement sooner rather than later, but also taming behaviours. Because if the guy knows, look, I know she can't move interstate without me, you know, agreeing to it, and I do in fact have, you know, the ability to seek to spend significant and substantial time with my kids, you're going to be coming from a place of, well, confidence and hold up. Let's be realistic and work on this together. You don't get your way necessarily. And so how can we, you know, be more collaborative? Because at the end of the day, it's the kids who irreparable damage is inflicted on them by those high complex separations. And that too leads to mental health and certain patterns in adulthood as well. Yeah,
and I guess that can become a sort of self-fulfilling thing where, you know, if it comes from the parents and then the kids, you know, take on that trauma or, you know, whatever that situational stress, then they end up not learning the same, you know, mistakes, learning from the mistakes that the parents made, and they pass that on to their kids. And I guess until that cycle breaks, it probably just keeps going a lot of the time.
Yes.
So you when you were saying 42 is the median age, are you saying that's the median age of divorce? 42
of separation.
Yeah.
So with divorce, you can't actually apply for divorce until you've been separated for 12 months and 1 day. So that's that 42 year period that we're seeing.
And for women, what's the median age for separation for women?
Off the top of my head, I think it's something
roughly?
Like 38, 39 point something or other. Yeah.
Right. So it's pretty young for on both sides.
It is. I think, you know, we're certainly seeing clusters of groups coming in. So we're seeing what I call the Cupid couple or the career couple who, you know, have been together for maybe 10 years, but they don't have kids, got together in early 20s, then come early 30s, they're making the move to separate. So there's that cluster, that cohort. Then you've got the parents who've got those school-age kids, and they've been together maybe sort of 8 to 12 years, and that's where I think you're sitting with the median age for separating for men and women. And then you've got the much older, sorry, I shouldn't say much older, but what we call the silver splitters. So those couples who are sort of 55 years plus, who've made the decision after they've got their adult children that, look, going into retirement, I don't think this is, I want more out of life, and I don't think that this is going to work moving forward. So they're the peaks as to when I think, well, the trends that we're seeing come through in terms of couples who are separating these days.
Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organisation, and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups, and you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. This group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events, we've got courses, we've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it, and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And do you know roughly what the figures are around how many relationships end, and what percentage last and stay the course, and what percentage end up falling apart, separating?
So I think for married couples these days, it's sitting just under 50%, so something like 47, 48%. But we are noticing that marriages are in fact lasting longer, and in part that's because people are getting married later in life. So you're clearer as a 30-something-year-old, perhaps in terms of what you're looking for by way of a life partner and those sorts of things. De facto couples, I'm not sure. So de facto being those couples who live together but aren't married. I'm unclear on the stats for that. But certainly the bulk of the couples who I work with today have been married, but for those Cupid career couples is what I call them.
Yeah.
So the younger set.
It's super interesting though, and at 50%, I guess it's a pretty big figure. And I think it's only positive that people are getting married later now and, doing a lot of things later, because how are you meant to know, what you actually want? And, you need that time to find out about yourself and what you're looking for in life. And if you get married in your early 20s, or you meet your partner, then sometimes it might work, but a lot of the time you might find I'm a completely different person than I was back then, and I thought I knew what I wanted and everything like that, but I've realized it's a lot different, and I'm a different person than my partner, and I'm sure that would happen so often.
Yes, yeah. We have what we call the amicable separation quiz, and we give a few prompts to ask people, what are the reasons that you identify for, thinking about separating, all of the reasons that you have separated. And often, there's the values. I've just realized that we have different value sets. There's a loss of love and affection, and the communication. So communication seems to be the number one reason why people identify as we're separating, because communication has just deteriorated. And I think certainly headspace is so important when you are separating, because like death, there's that grief cycle of grieving the end of the relationship as you know it, but also recognizing that even if you as the individual made the decision to separate, and you then communicate that to your partner might be in a very different headspace to you off of that grief cycle. So just being clear that, look, I can't push them before they're emotionally ready to move forward with the formal aspects. So I've got to be a bit patient and respect where they're at emotionally.
Yeah, definitely. And, that makes, I think in general in life as well, identifying values and communication are just two of the biggest things.
Mm.
You know, we can't really understand much about anything or anyone if we can't communicate properly. And it's so important to, know what your values are. If I think back to previous relationships I've had, when they didn't work, it was when on reflection, there were just complete different core value sets. And you look back and you say, well, that was never going to work. But at the time, it sort of just organically happened. And it's so interesting. And I think it just, again, comes down to, well, the more we can educate, we can learn about ourselves and become more self-aware and try and really understand ourselves. And the more we're going to be able to look for the qualities we want in a partner, or, like you're saying, be able to communicate and talk through issues when they're happening, so you don't become resentful at each other and hold on to these different things that could maybe be resolved through communication.
Yes, yes. And it's that thing of giving your partner the opportunity as well to redress any hurt or upset that you feel that they've inflicted on you.
Yeah. What are some of the difficulties you see come up in that grieving process you were talking about? Are there certain things that are quite common that people find really difficult in that period? And are there some examples of, things you see coming up?
I think there's a saying that women grieve before they leave. So that is, they've already started the grieving process, the end of the relationship, whilst they're still together with their partner. And so for some women, they say, look, I've given him all the chances. I've shared with him, I've communicated, I've asked him to pull his own socks up, and I just don't see any change happening, but I have no other choice but to leave. And so for the guy, even though the writing might have been on the wall for years that, we're heading towards a separation, he can still feel very much blindsided and shocked and really upset. And so there's got to be a degree of patience with that, because he has, he's just beginning to grieve the relationship as he knows it. And so the risk that you have there is, if you push him before he's emotionally ready or has a degree of acceptance that the relationship as you know it is ending, you're going to be met with resistance, distrust. He'll shut down. He won't participate in conversations. And the same thing is said for women as well. So for some men, who decide, look, I'm out, he might have emotionally checked out of the relationship, and then he eventually gets around to telling her. She too can be very devastated. There was a lady who we spoke with, and my team spoke with, and the husband apparently said to her, I haven't loved you for 3 years. And she was, aside from angry, she was so upset because she had made decisions for their benefit as a couple with a view to, well, we're going to be spending the rest of our lives together. But he didn't, for whatever reason, he decided not to perhaps respect her enough to communicate that earlier. And some things, the necessity of some comments, you kind of question, but he, from his perspective, he might have wanted to make it very clear to her, there is no prospect of us getting back together. But that was quite a damning, share or statement from him to her that inflicted a lot of perhaps unnecessary hurt. So, there certainly can be problems that arise with that grief cycle when you're not checking in with one another to see where you're at on that cycle.
Yeah. And I guess there's no way to really prepare for that process unless you've been through it already. Is that another thing that seems to be happening? I guess most people, they're learning as they go in that process. You wouldn't know how to prepare for that.
Yes, I agree with you. You sort of go, how do I do this? How do I communicate it? How can I, because it's so uncomfortable. You know that you're going to be introducing a lot of change and instability. You'll know that you may very well be inflicting hurt on the person, and you don't want to see them hurt. You still want to see them as a happy, healthy human being after the fact. And when you think of separation and divorce, you think this is going to be a life-changing event, one that is incredibly challenging for us both and our family. How are we going to move forward and overcome it together so that we don't end up in court? We don't have expensive lawyers who we can't, afford, and inflicting irreparable damage on us. There's got to be a way to do it. And I think, the beauty is that if you get the right information at the right time, early on in the piece, your chances of separating together versus apart in that traditional legal system are far greater. And that, to me, is what's inspiring when you see those people put their hands up and say, hold up, we're out of our depth. What do we need to do to get on the same page and work together, recognizing one another's feelings and hurts to come out the other side?
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think needs to be done in society for people to be better prepared for that, or to be more educated about this? Like, are there things you think that we could, in education or different parts of society, that could be done better to help in this area? Yes,
there certainly is, and I think everybody's the idea that, well, we're going to end up in court, that is just not an option. Court is there for those couples who have the high conflict, significant complicated issues of family violence, abuse, questions of law, all of that. For everybody else, it's really just surrounding yourselves with the right people who are going to meaningfully help you work through this, lily pad your way towards a separation agreement. And so I think that the more the legal profession, but also the community can do to, in fact, dismember the idea that, the threat of going to court is a genuine threat and we will end up there if you don't agree to this, is something that we can better educate people and also offer some reassurance to say, look, there's actually a way through this. What will help you to get on the same page to work through it is to do A, B, C. This is what you need to know. Here's the first immediate step. Just making the complexity and anxiety of separating simple and easy will work wonders for couples and their kids.
Yeah, because it can, just such a stressful process to be going through otherwise. And there's no, 100%. So I think it's so important. Another sort of general question with relationships, I don't know what your view is on it, but when it comes to codependency, is that something that seems to be a big issue that, that you generally see?
Yes, in terms of certain aspects, yes. Certainly when you're thinking about the social setting, for many, and even the research in part supports this, but for many men in particular, their support system largely consists of his partner's wife or his partner's friends and family. And when you separate, that can fall away altogether. So this guy is left out there alone going, hold up, who do I have to support me through this experience and process? So that aspect of that codependency, yes. You also see a little bit of the perhaps those traditional sort of relationships of, look, I don't need to think, my partner's got this. And so that dependency on them, that can certainly reduce accountability and that feeling of responsibility in terms of the breakdown of the relationship, but what needs to happen moving forward. I practice in a very niche sort of area nowadays, but certainly when I used to go to court and, we're representing people about finances and kids, there would be complicated issues of codependency, whether that be about substance abuse, but also, the dynamics of family violence, those sorts of things. Yeah,
definitely. And when it comes, I guess, for yourself, a lot of the time we just ask the guest, in not just in mental health, but in wellness in general, how do you maintain balance in your own life? What are some things that you do? Or do you find that difficult? I guess, in this day and age, we seem to find so many guests now, burnout is such a huge thing and it's hard. You've got to be more rigid about trying to manage that? Because, the world's 24/7. We've got access to technology 24/7. Are there some things you do personally in your own life that you can share with us that help you?
So I'm a work in progress. I am the best violator of my own boundaries, and that is the story that I need to stop telling myself. The story that I ought to be telling myself is I am in charge of the boundaries that I put in place. This is a bit of Tony Robbins coming in here. Look, in terms of the things that I do, I certainly put boundaries with regards to what time I finish work. I feel that I have to, otherwise I won't switch off. I have goals in terms of the number of times that I will and must work out each week. And I've been looking to introduce sort of some of that daily gratitude. What am I most grateful for? What was the high point of my day? What did I learn? Because it's those things that carry over and help prime you for the next day to come, something that you might otherwise be dreading, but you're getting in there and you're looking forward to it. So that state, that physiology, work in progress, but I certainly do try to focus on my mental health and well-being. And I too have a support person. I have a psych who I see from time to time, because I know there are things within me that I certainly need to improve on as well.
Yeah, well, I think everyone should, see it's like we can all improve. It's like saying, I don't need to work out. I think we can all improve. And I think we're all a work in progress. And, I talk about a lot of this stuff, but then there's so many things that I slip up on and find difficult. And I think, just being honest with ourselves and not being too hard on ourselves about it and just trying our best and trying to, look at the areas we can improve and making small steps forward is all we can do. We can't sort of do everything at once, and life's difficult. There's only so many things we can manage at a time. So yeah, I love the points you made there. So we finish every episode with just 5 closing questions. So I'm not going to throw you, too far under the bus here. They're not nothing too crazy. But the first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
This would be, I found my dad's wallet underneath the carpet in his car. I found his wallet and he bought me the little Kelly doll with the toilet. I absolutely loved it. So I think I was maybe 6 or 7. So that was a really fun memory.
That's great. Love it. What do you think is the biggest burden on mental health in society at the moment?
Oh, gosh.
The 10-year anniversary of Under Bracks, and we've relaunched with the classic white pair. We've also got new styles coming out super soon. We're donating $1 from every pair to mental health, currently to 1 in 5. You can find all of this at www.underbracks.com.
So there are 2 parts. It's a struggle for me to say that the biggest burden, but I think in part, we're living with the pandemic and we've got all these economic influences here, interest rates, property market, cost of living, all of those things. And so we're moving into a scarcity mindset. That is, people are squirreling. They're when you think of our fight, flight, freeze responses, people are saying, well, hold up, let's, winter, bear down, hold on to what we've got. So I think that's a real struggle for people at the moment, that financial instability or otherwise uncertainty. And then I think as well, there's still this, and perhaps it's because my area at the moment is quite focused on men's mental health, but for blokes, we've still got this stigma of, not asking for help, the guy having to be the breadwinner and carry responsibility for the whole family unit. And those 2 things are perhaps the biggest burdens on mental health at the moment.
No, I think that's a great answer. And really it is. It's very sort of topical what you're talking about. So yeah, definitely agree with you on that. What would you say is your personal definition of happiness?
The first word that comes to mind is contentment. Peace. And that focus on, look at what I have. I have my health. I have a roof over my head. I have joy on a day-to-day basis, and I have the ability to smile. and do something for others, whether it's even just as simple as smiling at somebody, but I have this ability to bring joy and help others. And I think that's real contentment and peace in one's own ability to do that.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, yeah, it's gratitude and helping others. And it's difficult to, just find that gratitude daily, because the mind can be conditioned to look at, what's next and how do I get to the, how do I achieve this next thing or this next goal, or, just get, instead of just enjoying the process. That's probably the thing I find, to this day most difficult, but it does make life a lot more enjoyable if you can find a way to just be grateful and enjoy the process.
Yes.
What are you most afraid of?
Not growing. I think
That's a good one.
Yeah. For you to, as human beings, we need to naturally evolve and grow, and that takes a lot of reflection and, self-awareness and insight. And so there's probably a part of me that fears, well, if I don't grow and overcome some of my own internal issues, what does that mean for the future, for me, for, when I have kids, for my relationships, for, my relationship with my partner. So that fear of not growing is something I've got to lean into and deal with rather than avoid.
Yeah. And final one, what are you most proud of?
Probably the relationship that I have with my partner, actually. I think people often ask me, being a family lawyer, not that I identify as that, does that dissuade you from marriage and relationships and all of that? And it doesn't, because I learn from the people who I work with, perhaps where I could improve and what I could do differently, and how do I mitigate the risk. Again, this is my analytical brain coming in, but, just working on what issues are showing up in my relationship that I'm contributing to, and how can I, change and grow. So I'm really proud of, I suppose, the relationship that I have with my partner. That's the most thing that I'm proud of.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great answer to end on, and definitely, learning from the industry you're in makes a lot of sense. So, really appreciate you coming on and talking about all of this. Oh, and also for anyone listening, if they want to learn more about the work you're doing, where can we send them? I'll put all of this in the show notes and all the links, but where's the best place for them to go?
So the best place would be the website, which is separatetogether.com.au.
Great. And again, that'll be in the show notes. So anyone listening that wants to go and look it up, just go to the notes and click on the link. So Siobhan, thank you so much for making the time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nick, for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks to Siobhan Mullins for joining me today for Move Your Mind. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to moveyourmind.me, or you can purchase the Move Your Mind book at nickbracks.com/book.